Coming up in this episode.
So you can say, like, I love myself. Like, of course, I don't hate myself, but then you're going to get drunk every day,
Yeah.
or you're going to have like the most chaotic, horrible partners ever. You don't love yourself. So when we're trying to heal, it's about like building self-love so that you do things to take yourself further. Your lifestyle, your daily life, it shows what
Yeah.
you really feel about yourself.
You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Here for the Truth podcast. I'm Joel Rafidi. Got my co-host Yerasimos with me as always. And today you're in for an absolute treat with Barlas Günay, who works in the field of psychotherapy. Yeah, it just comes at it from such a beautiful, holistic perspective, which I feel is so resonant with all the conversations that we have on this podcast, and it just raises those classic existential questions, which we ponder all the time. What does it mean to be yourself? What does it mean to actually develop the self? What does it mean to actually pursue real meaning in one's life? And what is the connection between meaning and quote unquote psychological dysfunction or a lack of meaning? And I don't know. I just love this topic so much, bro.
I love it too. I mean, obviously, it's the kind of background that I come from too is, getting into parts work and psychology as an actor and, studying in somatic experiencing and body work. And so I love, approaching, personal development, personal growth and finding meaning and stepping into that, unique gift that you are from a holistic way and understanding that there are different tools from different fields that can support you on that journey and they connect and they overlap. And so you can move beyond dogma. It's like, this is the only way. And it's like, no, well, how can this support me? How this help me? And as we, get into it with Barlas, different situations call for different things, an individual who's had, early developmental trauma or, complex trauma, is going to require different things for their healing and for their growth. But like you hit the nail on the head, meaning, purpose, knowing who you are and taking action, which is a big part of Barlas's work, is paramount.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So just as you're listening to this, just a reminder, you're capable of more. There is potential that exists within you that you can tap into. You didn't come here just to settle. You didn't come here just to go along to get along. We're all here for something more. And I think this podcast really exists to hopefully remind you of that and provide a bedrock and foundation that that that's the truth, that there is something more, there is more meaning to hold for all of us. Right before we dive into the episode, I just want to shout out our amazing membership community, Friends of the Truth. We are now rocking 155 members, 6 calls a month. The community calls are just getting more hilarious, and the connections that are being formed are really heartwarming to witness and to see. Because I think there's this kind of, I know I have it within me, from the outset, I would say, naturally, I'm kind of community allergic in some sense. And so the question was can healthy communities exist and thrive that honor individual autonomy, individual thought, discussion? And I feel like within Friends of the Truth, we're really proving and showing what's possible when individuals who are grounded in their own body, in their own self-esteem, come together over shared values, shared interests, and just connect, not take themselves too seriously. They can get deep. They can laugh at themselves. They can do it all. And it really is a bit of a dojo, I'm finding as well, for people to kind of practice, communicating, getting their point across, sharing their interests, being seen, being heard. So if you resonate with these conversations that we have on Here for the Truth, if you resonate with who we are as individuals, we would love to see you inside at hereforthetruth.com/FOTT. I see you wanting to say something, bro. Tell me.
Well, no, I love that you said that. Like, it's a dojo,
Yeah.
it's like, we're coming together, we get deep, not all of us share the same ideologies around everything, sure, there's shared core values. And it's like, in this environment where people and you trust people, this is the time to express yourself. This is the time to communicate. And sometimes your communication is going to be misunderstood. And
Yeah.
so how do you navigate that? How do you handle that? As opposed to not wanting to be misunderstood. No, how about being misunderstood and then dealing with that and navigating that in real time? Because what do you think reality is like? Better to do it in a container like Friends of the Truth or especially in Rise Above the Herd, our Wrath Academy, our academy, where we hold calls and coaching in there. Like, this is the time to do it. This is the dojo. This is the practice.
Yep.
Get real, get deep, deal with what comes up when people are challenging your ideologies, and how can you communicate better? How can you communicate logically? How can you communicate compassionately? Like, this is what we want. We want to build individuals, myself included,
Yep.
that are healthy, mature adults that communicate, can set boundaries, and make sense on
Well
some
said,
level.
man. Well
So,
said. We are capping the membership at 200 members. So if you're curious, if you've been sitting on the fence for a while, please take that leap. hereforthetruth.com/FOTT. Please enjoy Barlas Günay. Barlas Günay is a registered psychologist and certified meditation and mindfulness teacher based in the Netherlands, who over the past 13 years has guided thousands of people across the globe through profound journeys of healing and self-discovery. Trained in both the USA and Canada, he's the founder of Accept and Act, a healing platform offering online psychotherapy and a membership-based self-reparenting community with a combined following of over 100,000 across social media. He specializes in childhood trauma recovery, relationships, and holistic psychology, with a particular focus on the transformative practice of self-reparenting. His mission is to help as many people as possible heal from their traumas, reconnect with themselves, and step into life as conscious, free, and authentic adults and parents. Because he believes that when individuals heal, the world becomes a safer, happier place for all. I love that. Very resonant with all our discussions here at Here for the Truth, man. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you. Yeah.
No worries, man. One way we always like to kick off these conversations is we really want to kind of explore your personal story a little bit. So, some of the major rites of passage in your personal hero's journey, what kind of led you down this path? Even if you can get into your own childhood, if any of that is relevant, just wherever you feel called to start, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to the beginning, how I became interested in the human mind, becoming a psychologist, and the practice of self-reparenting. So my family, I was born and raised in Turkey, and my family was on average very different than the other families around us. So that was like the first breakaway from the herd, from the norm. We weren't traditional, we weren't religious. My dad was a professor of counseling psychology and music, by the way. So he influenced me a lot. He passed away in 2010. So being very different. And then in my family, my dad worked all the time. So he didn't have time for us. Like, I don't remember doing anything as a family.
Yeah.
So he was just like working. And when he was home, he was very distant. And my mom, she's amazing. But when I was growing up, she was going through a lot of stuff. So she was very critical, very judgmental. I have a sister. She's a little bit older than I am. She would always like compare us with other kids. So, all of these things, I grew up feeling really lonely, feeling really sad, just, like not having a lot of friends. So I got really into reading and music and arts and sports and things like that. So I was just trying to cope with it. And through that, with a combination of my father's books in the house and my own interests, I got really into psychology, spirituality, Buddhism, things like that. Yoga, I was always reading. And then I took a intro psychology course in high school as an elective. And that was it for me. I was like 16 or 17. I was like, okay, this is what I want to study. And when you're a teenager, like an angsty teenager back then, you take that course and it explains everything, like what is personality, what is depression, la, la, la. So that was it. And then I went to the United States. I went to American high school in Turkey. And then through that, I went to the United States. I studied psychology. And then I worked a little bit in Chicago at a mental health hospital. And then I moved to Canada. I got my master's degree in clinical psychology. I went to grad school there. And then here I am. So I've been living in the Netherlands for the past 9+ years. I work here and I focus on self-reparenting. And the reason I do this is because self-reparenting, I have discovered, is at the heart of like not only therapy, not only healing people, coaching people, things like that, teaching people, but it's also at the heart of living well as an adult, like for all of us. Because I think every single problem that we have, like every single challenge that we have in life, comes down to how you talk to yourself. So, and to put it really simply and really shortly, the practice of self-reparenting is about talking to yourself just like you would talk to a little child who is desperate for your help, with compassion, with curiosity, and with support. So when you're going through something, when you're feeling something heavy, not thinking of yourself as yourself, but as a little child. So if you had like a 4-year-old daughter or like a 5-year-old son or something, and if they came up to you and if they said, hey, daddy, you know, something horrible happened today at school and I feel really sad, you wouldn't say, okay, let's drink a bottle of whiskey, or like, you know, like that doesn't matter, you know, just shut up and keep going. Like you wouldn't do any of these things. You would always, always normalize and validate the difficult emotion. You know, it's okay, baby, you know, these things happen. I'm so sorry this happened. And then you would do something with it. And then you would support them. You would give them a plan of action. And that's where the name of my platform, my company comes from, Accept and Act. So first you accept, acknowledge, feel whatever you're feeling, or see whatever you need to see. And then based on that awareness, you do something. You know, it's not enough to just accept. You also have to act. So that's my story in a nutshell. And the focus that I have on self-reparenting, it's been like 6 years now on social media. I've been really focusing on it, like really teaching people the tools. It came from schema therapy. It's a type of psychotherapy that I'm trained in. And in schema therapy, they also talk about therapy as limited reparenting. That's how they call it. So when you have a client who comes to schema therapy, you are basically reparenting them in a limited way. You're teaching them emotion regulation skills. You're helping them process their traumas. You're teaching them good relationships through modeling good relationships with them directly. You use the relationship a lot, and through setting boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. So therapy is reparenting. Living life as an adult is reparenting. I think everybody is reparenting themselves and parenting themselves, but doing it more consciously and more deliberately and more intentionally is what I try to teach people. So that's the summary.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's so good to
Yeah.
hear your story. And I've got to say, I mentioned it to you previously, but like your Instagram page, Accept and Act, like there's not many pages that I feel like every post is kind of like on point to how I perceive these things as well. But it's very, very, very resonant. I definitely recommend people check it out. I want to ask you, like just diving deeper, you mentioned, you know, some things within your childhood, but what are some of
Yeah.
the other major challenges that you've navigated that you feel like led to your own personal psychological evolution, that, you know, were those moments where I was like, wow, this is something I really need to grow through?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first one was coming like around 14 years old. So that American high school that I told you about, it's called Robert College. It's like a private American prep school in Turkey. It's actually the oldest institution that the United States opened abroad. It's from like 1863.
Wow.
So I got in there because, you know, I was really, I had really good grades and I wanted to go there because I wanted to study in the US. So I planned everything when I was like 12, 13, 14. And then when I got in there, it was a completely different environment, you know, a huge challenge. I was not ready for it because, like I told you, I was like this really, really sad, like really depressed, angsty teenager kid, social isolation. I didn't have many friends. I just had my hobbies and my activities and my sports and my music and things like that. But there, I was really pushed by the environment, by my teachers. Most of them were really good, and with some of them, I'm still in touch actually after like 25 years. I was really pushed to develop socially,
Yeah.
and also like with their help, I also pushed myself. So after like the first one or two semesters of like being the shy kid, I said, okay, like I have to make a change. I have to really push myself. And I started acting in every single theater play that I could find, every single musical that I could find.
Wow.
I formed a band. Like I was already playing guitar and singing since I was like 12. So I formed a band and started playing in like little bars and clubs in Istanbul. So like I went 180 degrees. That was like the first um, challenge that like 14, 15, 16, becoming who I really am. Because when I look back, like I was never supposed to be a shy kid. Like I was shy and introverted and sad because my environment was not supporting me. Like there was no one to hang out with, no one um, that was, good for me. So I was really isolated. So if I had the right environment, I would never be socially isolated. So it was more like unfolding, like uncovering who I
Mhm.
am. So that was first in high school. And then the second one is around like 18, 19 when I moved to the US. So of course, because I went to an American high school for like 5 years, I was already, familiar with the culture, et cetera, et cetera. But then, when you move there from Istanbul, Turkey, I moved to small town Indiana. I
Oh,
went to
wow.
Earlham. Yeah, I went to Earlham College. It's a small private liberal arts college in Richmond, Indiana. It's like a 35,000 people town. Beautiful town, but it's completely different because Istanbul is like this 15 million, one of the biggest cities in the world, at least in Europe. So I go from there, and we lived in a really nice area too. So I go from there to like small town America, like the second huge culture shock. So it's like, okay, what am I doing here? Well, I'm on a mission. I came here to study psychology, and I had a pretty good scholarship too. So I was like, okay, this is the second time, after 14, I really have to like push myself and challenge myself and turn into someone else, upgrade. But the thing is, of course, because now I was an adult and because adult things came into play, some addictions started to take hold, some other like darker sides of me started to become uncovered, just like these different, like more social, more productive, more musical or artsy creative sides were uncovered in high school when I went to college and when I grew up. Um, some darker stuff started happening. I mean, first, of course, it's like the typical American college party life kind of stuff, which is horrible, but it's completely normalized in all these movies and TV shows. It shouldn't be, but it is. So I got really into it, like in alcohol and some other drugs. I really found some refuge. I was thinking, I'm like, wow, like this is what I should do, because it feels great and it helps me socially and things like that. So from there, like from the end of high school, beginning of college, all the way until my early 30s, I had to um, battle with primarily with alcohol problems, alcohol abuse, and also some other stuff, and like everything that brings, right, like relationship problems, tons of drama. You have to get involved with the police, like all that shit, like everything you can think of that an alcoholic goes through. I've lived through it. And but then so that's like the second stage. When I was in Canada, when I was like 26, 27, going to grad school, I had this huge realization after a really bad breakup and some other troubles. I was like, I can't become a psychologist like this, like I can't be like an alcoholic, like someone who parties like 6 nights a week and then like shows up to these therapy sessions or like research projects, or like what is this, like this is stupid. I can't do this anymore. So I started the process of like trying to quit, trying to sober up, but of course it took years. And then that was like, let's say, the third battle, trying to leave everything and everyone that came with that lifestyle, all the girlfriends, all the best friends, all the environments, all the fun, let's say, although it was self-destructive, and completely going back to like being alone, being socially isolated because everyone around me wanted to drink and get into trouble and do things. So I lost like overnight like 95% of my friends. I had no one. And now I look back, they were never really friends. You know, they were just like drinking buddies and people who were around just to have fun. And as soon as I stopped, the addictions and everything, they disappeared. So I had to like recreate my whole social circle, social life, like 9, 10 years ago. When I moved here to the Netherlands, it was like this huge, yet another culture shock, yet another big transition, but this time it was like completely positive. And it's because of those years in my 20s, like struggling with alcohol, like having all these troubles and crazy relationships. Now I'm able to have this like lived experience of what trauma is, what addiction is, what a completely insane relationship looks like, how to deal with it, like what an out of control life looks like. How do you deal with crazy, evil people, and how do you deal with some other troubles in your life? I've done all of it multiple times, more than enough to last anyone a couple of lifetimes. So now I try to keep things really simple and just remind people what matters in life, which is being healthy and growing and helping people around you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing a lot. I want to ask you this because you said like once you made this decision, you lost all your friends, but was it a process? Because I always keep thinking of the crabs in the bucket analogy.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
you start wanting to make shifts in your life, you want to be healthier. You know what? I'm not drinking that much anymore. And then like what were those friends like? I'm assuming it didn't just happen overnight. It was
No,
a process.
no,
So
no.
like what what were your relationships like? Were they trying to pull you back? Were they making fun of you if you were like, hey, I don't really want to drink tonight? I'm just curious how that process went for you.
Yeah, yeah. So I started to slowly realize, and but the quitting drinking, like that was really overnight. You know, one day, it was July 17, 2017. I woke up one Saturday morning, completely hungover again, and I was like, I can't do this anymore because, 2 days after that, I had just gotten a new job at a really nice clinic here in the Netherlands. And I was like, I can't, like, it was going to be my first day at work. It's like, I can't be that guy again, who's gonna show up hungover, like who's gonna miss things because he was partying or drunk or in some kind of trouble or drama. So that was one day, and I went cold turkey. But leading up to that, there was at least 5 years of like trying to quit, realizing like losing friends, getting into trouble, and then having like a quiet period, and then again another 5 years of struggle. But then one day, I was done.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. I want to ask you, how would you define the self? Like when we hear the phrase the self, the
Yeah,
word the self, like what is that? What is the imagery that conjures up for you?
nice. So for me, self is consciousness, basically. It's not something like it's not who you think you are. That's more like personality. But the self is the tool that we all have, or let's say like this ability, this skill, this like gift that we have of being aware, being conscious of what's happening to you, what's happening inside of you, and what you want to choose, what you want to change around you. And therefore, the self is basically not what you're thinking or not who you think you are, but it's the consciousness, the presence that notices
Mhm.
what you're thinking, like who you think you are. So for example, when I say something like, I'm a very anxious person, for example, that's not myself. Like that can be my personality. It can be a personality trait. Okay, like some people are a little bit anxious, some people are a little bit depressed. That can be like a personality trait. But myself is who is the one who's saying, well, I tend to feel anxious. So it's like this observer, the built-in observer
Yeah.
who's seeing everything and conscious and aware of what's happening around you. For me, that's the self. And that's why nobody can take it away from you. Like, no matter what happens, as long as you're conscious, you have a self, and through that you can change yourself.
There seems to just be like like semantics and so much mix up with words. Like people will
Yeah.
say self with a big S and self with
Yeah.
a small s,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then if we're having a conversation on the architecture of the psyche, like
Yeah.
even that, like if someone were to ask you, like, what is the architecture of the psyche? How is the mind or the mind body construct made up
Yeah.
from your point of view?
Yeah. So the mind, but first the terms that
Mm-hmm.
people keep confusing. I made a video on Instagram a couple weeks ago, I think, about the ego. Like we
Mm-hmm.
always talk about the ego. So, and like that's one of the biggest examples, I think, of what you're saying. Because if you look at the hardcore textbook psychology literature, the ego is your reality testing apparatus. Like it's just something that Freud came up with in 1923 in his book, but he never called it the ego. Like he just called it das Ich, like the I in German. But the translator back then in the 1920s into English, he said, "Oh, like the ego, like that's a they found something fancy." But then in
What? Oh, real quickly,
psychodynamic,
I just
yeah,
want to
yeah,
say that ego, ego,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
Greek, so
yeah,
ego means I.
yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Anyways.
the same thing. So because he was giving, because Freud was giving all these names from the Greek mythology, like,
Mhm.
the Oedipus, and like the translator was like, "Oh, like das Ich, like the I, that sounds weird in English. So I'll just make it like ego, another Greek,
Mhm.
like another Greek term for it." So like, that's it. He meant to say the I, which is like supposed to be, to put it really simply and broadly, like it's supposed to be your mature, responsible, reality testing adult part. Like there's
Yeah.
the ego, and then there's the superego, which is like the morals and rules and ethics, and then there's the id, another fancy word for basically like your raw instinctual drives like sex and hunger and aggression. So he was saying like ego is the one who controls all these things. And if you have a strong ego, if you have a big ego, it's actually a good thing, because then you can control these two extremes of like, being too strict, rigid, and, critical and, judgmental, but also being like too animalistic and, reckless and impulsive. So you want a strong ego. And the whole like early psychotherapy, psychodynamic, it's built on making the ego like bigger and stronger because it's a good thing. Like it makes you responsible. But then when you look at like more spiritual
Mhm.
sources, the past couple, it's like, the ego is bad. You have to kill your ego. You have to do this, you have to do that. And then, you have to transcend the ego. So it's the exact opposite of, what you try to do in psychoanalysis and psychodynamic but also like as a term in psychology. Basically, it has come to mean like everything you don't like about yourself, your arrogance, your aggression, your narcissistic traits, like your selfishness, that's ego. So don't call it ego, like just say arrogance, selfishness. So
Mhm.
so that's something. You made a great point. In these discussions there's always like the like legit old school meaning versus like the social media meaning, or yeah.
Well, I mean, what I couldn't understand, again, coming from the Greek
Mhm.
translation, is like,
Mhm.
why would I want to destroy the I? Why would I want to
Yeah,
get rid of I? Like,
yeah,
and be what? Nothing? Like,
yeah, yeah,
I just never could like buy into that.
yeah,
But it seems to have
yeah,
taken hold.
yeah. And that's the psyop, my friend. They like, if you destroy what makes you like a normal adult, like who says no, and who calls out craziness and things like that, then like we're all one, everything goes, no. No, like we have to have boundaries, we have to have limits, we have to be realistic about these things. So I think a lot of that stuff, like a lot of that narrative, is just to make people like more obedient, easier to control, and softer and weaker. So like trying to make you a doormat basically, so you don't fight too much. But yeah, like going back to the construct of the self. What
The
were
I
you?
psyche.
would say the architecture of the
Yeah, the
psyche.
arch. Yeah, architecture of the psyche. So the psyche, again, like it's the mind, basically, right? Like that's another good Greek word. So psychology. So it's our mind, and it's layered based on our early childhood experiences. So when you think about the development of the brain and the nervous system, like in every animal, it's first like the spinal cord, and then there's the cerebellum, and then the most complex, the most conscious part of the brain, the cortex, that develops the last. But for that to develop, you need to have the basic parts too. So the psyche is the same. So first, what develops is safety, security. Like, am I gonna be annihilated? Am I gonna be taken care of, like as a baby, as an infant? Like that's the first thing you learn: safety versus unsafety, or being whole, like being healthy versus being completely destroyed. So your parents meeting your needs, teaching you security, safety, treating you well, treating you, like giving you the tools to be able to grow. That's like the spinal cord. And then on top of that, you get older, 8, 10, 12 years old, more abstract thinking, more critical thinking, more complex thinking, your identity, like what kind of life do you want to have, future, your plans and goals. And then finally, I think as an adult, 20s, 30s, 40s plus, ideally, that's like the top most advanced part of the psyche, where you learn like what your purpose is and why you came into this world, and how you can make a difference, how you can live the most meaningful, most conscious life that you can live. So it's like this hierarchy of different psychological skills and stages in your life. So for me, like that's the construction of the psyche. And in therapy, for example, or in self-development, we are, of course, working towards like more advanced skills, more self-realization. That's why it's really healing to be as conscious as you can be, to be as um, to try to live a life that's as meaningful as you can live. Because when you do that, it automatically takes care of a lot of all the other suffering or confusion or the problems that you have, because now you have a mission, so that really elevates the psyche and speeds up the healing.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think the biggest epidemic that we face really is a lack of personal meaning. You know,
Yeah.
even in a mythological sense, like if you can zoom out and think that, wow, is it possible that I'm a unique being with unique purpose? And then the meaning that provides you on the offset, like, is it possible that my interests aren't just random, but they're unique threads for me to follow because there's some meaning for me to develop in my life? And I think, like, rather than actively, trying to discover meaning, many people, I think, when they're drawn to like psychotherapy and work like this, there's like a self-help trap and a self-help loop that can take place for people as well. And they avoid doing the real thing that might actually provide a solid baseline for them. And they get stuck in this healing trap. I'm just wondering, whoever has thoughts on that.
Well, and I would just say it just feels like this addiction to healing. Like I'll get into the relationship. I'll do the thing once I figure out all this stuff. Now I understand there's some baseline stuff one needs to do, but I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like people are like, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. And it's like, well, if you take action, you say accept and act. If you take action, life is going to show you, life is going to bring you things to learn from and grow from. And I just feel like, just something that I'm witnessing a lot in the world today. So yeah, please share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's layers of self-deception and avoidance in the psyche. Why? Because it tries to stay the same, like it tries to stay safe. So it tries to be really like rigid and protective. And because of that, a lot of people, I think, get caught up in that trap that you guys are talking about. Because another thing that I see a lot is that anything but real change kind of mentality. Like they will change stuff on the surface through I don't know, like workshops, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, retreats, whatever, like psychedelics, but it's never proper deep work of like, okay, like who am I? Why am I doing what am I doing right now? How can I find the real tools to change my life? As you said, like how can I act differently, basically, instead of like running from activity to activity, or like from this ritual to ritual, and like cause deeper change. So this is something that happens, I think, because like that's what the mind tries to do. It's just like our muscles, for example. Like if you haven't worked out for a while, when you lift weights, your muscles are screaming, right? It's like, stop, like we want to stay the same, like we want to stay this size, because for our life we have adapted perfectly. Like, you don't lift heavy things, you just work a desk job. So we are perfect size for that. Like, why are you messing with this? But then the more you push them, it's like, okay, we will grow because you're forcing us. And then you get to the next level. It's the same with the psyche. So, like a lot of people, like they know they want to heal. They know they have trauma. Like they know they should get to the next level. But it's a great way, like, to do these peripheral healing things. It's a great way to look like you're healing, but
Yeah.
at the same time staying the same. So it's perfect. It's like, I'm doing all this stuff, so I'm better than you, I'm healed, but at the same time, I'm still the same. So it's like win-win, two birds with one stone, at least for the psyche. But it's all like layers and layers of self-deception, being afraid of hearing the truth about ourselves,
Yeah.
and
Beautifully
also
said, man.
denial and avoidance. Yeah,
Yeah. It's like courage is necessary at all
absolutely.
times for
Yeah,
real
yeah,
change.
yeah.
And like, I want to kind of ask you, like, what would you say are the real like benchmarks or signposts for real change when someone can observe their journey and be like, wow, I'm really changing here. I'm really growing.
Mhm. Yeah, good question. The first sign is being able to stay in reality, I think.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about this, but it's it's something so important, because when you start talking about reality, it's like, but it's true. Like, when you think about it, so many of us, so many so-called adults, they are living lives that have nothing to do with reality. Like, they have nothing to do with the truth. So for example, um, people who work jobs that they hate. You can rationalize this in any way. Well, I have to make money, man. Okay, you do, but this is not your reality. Your reality is supposed to be whatever is coming to you naturally, whatever like you're supposed to do. So to be able to live in this reality, you have to be authentic. So the first sign is your connection to reality and to your own authenticity. Like, are you doing things that you really want to do, or are you doing things to look good, or to please others, or because like you were told to do so? And that's something that a lot of people don't expect, because like, well, what does that have to do with me, like being depressed or like having anxiety attacks or something? Well, it has a lot to do with that, because when you're not living a life that's true to yourself, when you're lying to yourself, when you're people pleasing, self-sacrificing, saying yes when you want to say no, it's going to take its toll on you. So the first one is like getting in touch with your reality, your authenticity. Second one, I think, it's more technical. It's more like emotion regulation, nervous system regulation. Like, you've practiced um, thinking a different way. You've practiced how to breathe properly, how to listen to your body properly. You've practiced meditation so much that now, when you feel something difficult, you are able to recognize it. Like, it's not like you're a robot, like, okay, I feel horrible right now because XYZ. Like, it registers, it's nice, like, why you're feeling what you're feeling, but you're able to move. Like, it doesn't derail you for like 3 weeks, and then it's like you're able to be like, okay, I feel sad, anxious, angry, whatever, because XYZ happened, and here's what I can do. So your responses become less intense. You are able to move on quicker from difficult emotions. And that ties in with what I was talking about earlier with the self-reparenting. Like if you were parenting a child, like not yourself, but if you were parenting a child, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, I understand why you're feeling bad. It's very normal. And here's what we're going to do. You wouldn't stay with your child and be like, okay, let's feel like this for the next month. Okay, like let's cry about this for the next 8 hours. No, like after the initial validation and support and empathy and compassion, you'll be like, okay, honey, like let's go get some ice cream. Let's take a walk. Like let's go to the pool, something.
Yeah.
So action part. So you are able to do this more. Like you are able to do accept and act more when you're healing. So authenticity, emotion regulation, nervous system regulation, being able to accept and act. And then the final part, I think, is relationships. Like you are able to have relationships that are like mutually beneficial and honest and direct and real and authentic, like no bullshit, no games. You just tell them what you want and they tell you what they want. And you find a common ground, no hard feelings. It's fine. It moves. It's good. And then if you have problems, you are able to come back and repair, because like if you're not emotionally mature, if you're not psychologically mature, those ruptures in the relationship are going to be catastrophic. It's like, well, this is it, we're done, rather than, well, this is something that can happen, in your relationships. So having more empathy, more compassion, like better relationship skills, better communication skills. Of course, you're still boundaried, but you're able to repair relationships that matter in a much efficient way, I would say.
Yeah.
That was a great answer.
Yeah. Am I being cynical when I respond to you saying, I just feel like you're describing a very rare kind of individual?
Yeah, it is rare. It is rare, but it is doable. Yeah. And that's why, man, like that's why I post about other stuff too. Like it's not just, self-reparenting, relationships, self-regulation. Also, there's like a there's like a social cultural dimension to this too. This is why I always say, to be able to heal yourself, you have to overcome normal. Like you have to reject the majority. You have to reject the norm, the normal, because everything that's like healthy and psychologically mature and free and conscious and authentic is weird and abnormal and rare in our society. So like, for example, it's abnormal to not numb yourself with like drugs or alcohol in a huge part of the society. Like everything is an excuse to drink, everything is an excuse to like eat crazy amounts of sugar. Like, and when you don't do that, oh no thanks, like I don't want to eat that birthday cake, or like I don't drink. It's like, what? Like why?
What's wrong with you? What's
Yeah,
wrong with
like
you?
why? Like why? Come on, man. Like relax. Just no. Like why would I? So things like this, or when you try to do your own thing, like I reject this like normal 9 to 5 corporate job thing. I want to do my own thing. Okay. You're crazy. You're never going to make it. This is stupid, blah, blah, blah. But that's what you should do, because, so like everything you should do is framed as like weird, abnormal, or crazy, or stupid, or something like that.
That's
And
the
first,
matrix. That's the
yeah,
matrix.
yeah, exactly. So they, the Agent Smiths, they, they try to stop you. They first, make fun of you. They try to stop you. Sometimes they get really angry. It creates a lot of like fear and anger in people. But then, once they see how much better your life is, then they want to be like you.
Yep.
So it's this like crazy dynamic. It's really interesting. But that's why I say, like, you have to overcome normal. Like you can't be like going to therapy, trying to heal yourself, like doing all these things, but still eating like normal food, but still watching like normal movies and TV shows, but still like watching the news all the time, but still like eating a certain way. It's not going to work, because you are only working on one part, and that's the holistic approach. Like, to be able to heal yourself, it's not just like fixing your negative thoughts or like learning how to regulate your nervous system. You will never be able to regulate your nervous system if you're eating like processed sugar, hyper processed foods all the time, and not sleeping, and like looking at a screen for like 18 hours a day. Like, you're never going to be able to heal. Like, you're going to have some skills, you're going to improve like 10%, but because you haven't opted out of that normal of like numbing yourself, being sedentary, being unhealthy, like going to the supermarket and just buying whatever, and that's okay, you're never going to heal fully. So breaking out of these things, like, nobody talks about it. Like, it's not just these techniques and skills in your mind with your thoughts and all. Like, overall, culturally and socially, you also have to like go against a lot of things that are considered normal.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say nobody talks about it, but a rare few talk about it. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But you're definitely speaking our language there. And that's something that I
Yeah.
always say is that you have to be willing to disappoint people.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to disappoint the people in your life, your friends, your family that have deep expectations and projections on who you are and how you should live your life. And you have to deal with that discomfort as it comes and be with it and still act and still say, hey, you know what? I feel I'm at this job. It doesn't feed my soul. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But what do you mean? You went to school for this. This is what you need to do and spend the rest of
Yeah.
your life doing.
Yeah.
And you're going to rise up the ladder and then you're going to get married and blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, I'm going to just leave it. And I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm going to take my savings and backpack around the world and travel and read and then see what comes from that and follow my inner compass and follow my interests and start paying attention. And, it's like, I feel like this is a story of my life to some degree. I mean, it's stopped, but like, when I say stopped, I mean like people being like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you drinking? Why don't you stay at your job? Like, I left my post college corporate job in 2004. I was 24 and I began a more alternative journey and like people would make fun of me.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, I ended up moving into New York City to start pursuing an acting career. And I was living, my friend was kind enough to like build a small room in his place. And I was like living on the floor in an egg crate pad, like living off savings, like going to Central Park, reading books all day, taking acting classes. And people are like, what are you doing, Rasmus? Why are you like living in a closet? But it's like, okay, cool. But this is the path I want to take. Oh, why aren't you drinking as much? Well, I just don't want to. I want to wake up feeling good. And again, it's like, do you have like the self-esteem and do you have the inner strength to deal with that? Because I feel like a lot of people, they start making changes. And back to my analogy before, a parent, a friend starts making fun of them and they kind of crumble and they revert back to their ways. And so there has to be that baseline or build the baseline inner strength to know yourself and to go, this is who I am. I know what I value. I know what my gifts are. And I'm going to keep moving forward, regardless of what you think. And then you ultimately, hopefully, build a beautiful, fulfilling life where you're healthy. And then a lot of people are like, man, I want what he has. And I'm not just saying this for me. I'm just saying it for other people that have walked a similar path.
Yeah.
Again,
Exactly.
you have to walk the road less traveled. One of Joel's favorite books.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Like, that reminds me of something really funny that I went through listening to your New York experience and like quitting your job and stuff. When I was 25, I was in the Turkish army. Like, we have to do mandatory military service, so I served for a year. And when I was there, I was thinking of, okay, well, I'm here for now, but I really need to go to grad schools. I want to go back to the US or Canada. So I was preparing during the military service again, like. Trying to prepare for the GRE, like writing my cover letter, like writing my essays, like it was crazy. I was so busy. And I remember going to the American consulate in Ankara, Turkey to take the GRE exam to be able to, get into these like masters and PhDs. And you're in this big classroom. There was like 50 people, and the teacher or whatever, like, she's giving out the GRE subject tests. There's like engineering, psychology, math, like la la la. So he says, who's taking engineering? It's like everybody, like, because they're gonna go to America and they're gonna have this amazing engineering job, and they're gonna work fucking 80 hours a week and they're gonna be rich, la 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 la. And then at the end, it's like, who's taking GRE psychology? I'm like the only guy, There must have been like 60 people. And I remember people fucking laughing at me, It's like people, I'm like, hey, I'm taking Jerry psychology subject test. They're like, are you stupid? Like you're going to go to grad school in America, but study psychology. Like, this is so stupid. You're never going to make money, la, 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 la. Fast forward 10, 20 years, all of those people are trying to work with me as clients because they're so unhappy with
Yeah.
their lives, with their corporate lives. Like they can't set their schedule, they can't do what they really want to do, like they don't have time for their families, they don't and in terms of money too, like they didn't see too many benefits either, especially how the
Yeah.
inflation is going and everything the past like 5, 10 years. So like they did everything right, like they did everything as they were told,
Hmm?
but still, so like it's a similar thing that you went through. Like everybody fucking laughed at me, and I was like, this is what I want. Like, why would I study something that I hate? Yeah.
It's really interesting. One of our mentors, he talks about like we're living in this post psychological and post philosophical world. Like
Mhm.
like the desire for real self knowledge like is rare,
Yeah.
and like the way people poo poo psychology. Sure, there's elements of it that maybe I'm not a fan of, but like at the most foundational level of self reflection, of being with yourself, of being okay with silence and being curious about who you are and what you do and what you want out of life. Like it is rare still, even though we are in this world where everyone's like doing something and personal growth and healing and
Yeah.
spirituality. Even then, I feel like there's stuff under the surface that I think people just aren't as drawn to, So,
Mhm.
and I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I'm the only one that, I mean, obviously we're having this conversation. Obviously we have people that are into this kind of stuff, but as
Yeah.
a general rule, like the amount of distractions, the amount of addictions, technology is beautiful, and it also, is something people need to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sex, drugs, porn, social media, doom scrolling, like put it down, go sit on a couch and don't touch anything. Go sit next to a tree and don't even read a book. What would happen if you were just chilling and
Yeah.
being with yourself? What would come up for you to pay attention to and be with?
Yeah. I don't think it's simplistic or a stretch to say that the root of all dysfunction is rooted in self-hatred at some level.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there's levels to it. I don't know how many people would sit here and say, I hate myself. But
It's
then their
subtle.
actions,
The,
their
the
actions, yeah.
it's
Unconscious.
subtle the
Yeah.
way that it
Yeah.
presents itself.
I
Yeah.
mean, drinking's like 3-4 hours a night all day. Like, yeah, you can translate that. You hate yourself because back to your example, would you do that to a child? Would you
Exactly.
hand them over a case of beer because they're having an issue? No, you
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then
Exactly.
we do it to ourselves, to those
Mhm.
those deep inner parts of us that are just waiting to be heard, waiting to be seen. And it's like, no, we'll just keep pushing you down, keep
Mhm.
pushing you down. It's like people like I'm going to use the idea of marijuana. Like sure, people have their views on it in certain medicinal ways, but like I look back to my old experiences. That was like one of the number one drugs that just like let's just keep it underneath. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm stressed, I'm anxious. Let me just take a hit. Oh,
Yeah.
everything's good. I'm
Yeah.
fine. And it's like people are on that roller coaster, and it's like, what happens if you take away the crutch? Then you have to deal with life. You have to deal with reality, like you were saying.
Well, you have to deal with the truth.
Yeah. You have to deal with the truth and the reality. And once you have seen it, then you have no excuse, like you can't claim ignorance. You have to do something. And I think that's why a lot of people numb themselves. And about marijuana, yeah, like I think so too. Like it can really, uh, I mean, I don't like that, but like it really lowers your vibration, I think, like literally when you, like for me too, especially, um, I haven't smoked in like 7 years or something, but every time I did, it made me feel worse. Like, I mean, as you said, I know people use it for medicinal purposes. For some people, it's really good, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I have never seen any benefit. If anything, it has made everything worse, and it has like cut me off from what was happening inside of me and cut me off from the problems that I really needed to solve. So it's again, like it's layer and layer of self-deception and denial, and like these bullshit that we tell ourselves. But as you said, Joel, I think like self-hate or like lack of self-love, it's more like a spectrum. How much do you love yourself? Like how much do you accept yourself? And you see this every day. Like every day, I see this every day. And one of the biggest examples of this is like when you like consciously, of course, like as you said, like nobody says like, oh, I hate myself. And it's like this subtle unconscious thing.
Yeah.
But again, like consciously, your experience is of course going to be a certain way, which is like, acceptable socially, and, it looks good and it makes you fit in and la la la. But the unconscious, like in the background, that's the real, like that's really how you're feeling. And then it's just like with people, like they say, don't listen to what people say, watch what they do. So you can say, like, I love myself, like of course I don't hate myself, but then you're going to have the worst lifestyle ever, or you're going to have like the most chaotic, horrible partners ever, or as you said, you're going to get drunk every day. It's like, I love myself. You don't love yourself. If you loved yourself, you wouldn't be doing this shit. You would be acting more healthily, more better, like you would be protecting yourself more. You would be taking ownership of like what you want to do with your life. So like that's also another thing. Like when we're trying to heal, it's about like building self-love. Like you want to love yourself as much as possible so that you do things to take yourself further.
Yeah.
Because otherwise your actions are like betraying you. You can say whatever you want, like consciously, but if your lifestyle, your daily life, your actions, your habits, it shows what
Yeah.
you really feel about yourself.
Hey, Barlas,
Yeah.
I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
I love what you just said there. When you're working with people, how do you navigate like and I'm sure it's individual, but the process of being there, hearing someone, having compassion, but even like when you kind of are more direct, like we just said, like if you say you love yourself, you wouldn't be doing this shit. Because I feel
Mhm.
like some people like they really take to like being called out, but then there's a
Mhm.
time and a place because sometimes
Mhm.
people need to feel a little bit more safety. And then also
Yeah.
too, this may be controversial, but how you talk to men versus how you talk to women. Like
Yeah.
how have you navigated that in your
Yeah.
practice?
Yeah. Great question, man. Like this is really, really important. Like not only in therapy, but this is actually really, really funny. But of course, it's not a coincidence. Today I had an intern, like I had a psychologist in training, and like we did a session together, and this was the exact same question she asked. So it's perfect. So you have to first build the therapy relationship, right? Like it's you're not gonna, like I don't do these interventions after like 2 sessions, like I do it after, okay, like what's going on, what's happening. We have built a really, really good relationship. There's no bullshit. We're honest and we're working towards a goal together. The person is willing to hear these things, because like if they're not willing, then you can say it, but they're not going to come back. They're going to quit therapy. So first I build the relationship and I wait. And second, I start giving little doses of this, so it's not like, if you loved yourself, you didn't do this, but it's more like, well, it looks like there's a discrepancy between what you're telling me right now versus what you're doing. So like, what do you think about that? So we start with those, but then of course, sometimes with some clients, you do have to say things like this, because um, a part of your job as a therapist is to be like a normal, honest, authentic human being, so like you're not a robot. So if you see this thing, and as a human, if you're witnessing them like destroying themselves and hurting themselves like session after session, like at some point it's completely within the therapy relationship to be like, what are you doing? Like this is, like listening to your story, I get so sad, like it must be horrible for you. Like we do this stuff all the time. And like men versus women, I don't think, like when you're at that level, it's not different. I think, like once you've built the relationship, once the person is like willing to grow like this, and once they're like ready and able to hear it, I use the same language pretty much. um, but of course, like with some people it takes longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
The biggest cost that you'll ever have to wear in life is the psychological cost of like avoiding the truth.
Yeah.
And the load that you're going to place on your psyche over a prolonged period of time from like the compound interest of the psychological avoidance of truth, you know? And like this shows up in ways where people, they wouldn't normally categorize it as the avoidance of truth. But like we've been talking about, like staying at the job that doesn't feed your soul for what far longer than necessary is you avoiding the truth. Staying in the relationship that you know has extreme toxicity present and there's dysfunction that isn't being addressed. This is avoiding the truth. You know, each time you have this intuitive hit of like, oh, I wish I could be doing something else, something more creative, something that lights me up more. But then that's avoiding the truth, you know? And like that the load that we place on ourselves, like this is the distortion that exists within the psyche at the base level, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It is. Because we don't have, like, we don't yet, a lot of us, we don't yet have the tools to really face reality. You know, like living life as an adult, it's terrifying. Like if you really try to live it properly, you know, like no fear, I'm going to be authentic, I'm going to be conscious, like, you know, boundaries, I'm going to do my thing. You really have to level up, you know, like you have to be strong, you have to be disciplined, as you said, you have to disappoint people, you have to be able to have the courage, the strength to be the only like sane, normal adult in a room where everybody's, you know, just saying something completely crazy. So it's really difficult, and it's really heavy. And life, you know, as we get older, it also gets more difficult, I think, because you have more responsibilities, you know, you get married, you have kids, you have a mortgage, like whatever, financial or psychological, or, you know, your health starts to get worse. So it's like exceedingly difficult. So that's why it's easier to hide and deny and, you know, do these mental gymnastics and tell yourself that you can't do it and you can't change, and, you know, what's the point, and everybody's the same, la 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 la. And the culture is also like feeding this like nihilism of you know, like, what's the point, you know, just enjoy life today, and then you know, who cares. So I think it's the worst thing you can think, that to think that you're gonna die one day. So what's the point? It's like, because you're gonna die one day. Everything is extremely important.
Yeah, that's what creates the meaning. That's what creates the meaning at the fundamental level. Yeah, like obviously a core focus of your work is reparenting, and like, can the necessity of reparenting be reduced by healthy parenting?
Of
Do you think?
course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Then you internalize those skills and you do them automatically. It's like learning a language, you know, like, um, so um, when you have the native language, your parents speak the language, you don't have to do anything. Like, you don't have to take classes, you don't have to take book, like you just learn it. But the second language, when you're older, you have to like deliberately try to learn it. So it's the same thing. Like, if you have parents that are attuned, as we say, you know, you cry, they hug you, you know, you get angry, they don't punish you, they're like, okay baby, you know, let's chill out. Like, if you are soothed and taken care of and hugged and yeah, cuddled enough, basically, you internalize all these skills, the emotion regulation, nervous system regulation, because you implicitly learn this knowledge that, okay, like, I can have big feelings and that's going to be okay. Like, you know, I can be angry, but then yeah, like, mommy's going to come and take care of me. So you feel safe and secure and strong, and through that, it's all like internalized and encoded in your nervous system. So when you grow up, you do these things automatically, like setting boundaries. It's like, somebody wants you to do something you don't want to do, somebody wants you to do something inappropriate, you immediately say no, instead of like having to deconstruct it and learn it, like, these are boundaries, this is why they're important, this is how to say no, you know, just like with the language. Because I remember learning English as a second language, I started when I was 11. It's like it's like learning chemistry or something, it's like, with this formula, and like it's not natural. You have to constantly like think about it and then try and like remember the rules and things like that, whereas someone who's a native English speaker, they don't think about any of that shit. So like over time, of course, for me it became automatic. I
Yeah.
became basically like native speaker. But it's the same thing with the self-reparenting. If your parents take care of you well, you like non-verbally internalize all of these skills. But if they don't, you have to learn them later on. You can still learn them, but
Yep.
it's
It's a harder path.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's the main demographic of the people you work with? Is it a wide range, or is there a certain like avatar of your client?
Very, very wide with like little clusters of things. So one demographic that I work with is like, because I'm based in The Hague, Netherlands, and because I don't do therapy in Dutch, like I speak Dutch, but it's not good enough to do therapy in it. So naturally, that gets me more like the expat international population. Also, like where I live in the Netherlands, The Hague, it happens to be like a huge international city. A lot of like companies and organizations, global headquarters are here. A lot of like European Union organizations and buildings. So a lot of expats from all over the world. So that's like one little population. And then the other population, because I speak Turkish, obviously I get some Turkish people. But other than that, it's very wide. Like I have clients from Australia, Kenya, Sweden, Germany, like all over the place, all kinds of different ages. Like I have clients in their early 20s. I don't work with adolescents. Um, Early 20s, like late 70s. It's a whole demographic, but what's common is that there's some kind of international background, and also, of course, yeah, like definitely some level of childhood trauma, and how that's affecting them right now.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
What?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, what role, like for you, with your how you work with, does the body play into it? I know you talk about the nervous
Yeah,
system and everything, but I think like we're becoming a little bit more aware of. Let me say it this way: nervous system work is
yeah,
getting a lot of more popularity. And so, yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like, how do you navigate that with your clients? You're into meditation and mindfulness.
yeah.
I think, and so, like, how do you get them to connect and understand the physiology so they can notice what states they're in and support like their growth?
Yeah, yeah. So in therapy, like if you just study like regular cognitive behavioral therapy or something like that, they don't talk about it explicitly. They don't talk about it too much, but still, like there are interventions like when someone says how they're feeling, okay, like where do you feel this in your body? And you work with it. It's like, oh, I feel angry. I feel it in my heart. Like why? Like why don't you feel it somewhere else? Like where is it coming from? Is there some kind of thought, some kind of belief, some kind of memory attached to it? So that's already done, but it's not enough, especially if you're dealing with like long-term complex trauma,
Mm-hmm.
because what happens then is that um, the animalistic like survival part of your brain, the reflex, like fight or flight, the survival response part of your brain uh, has basically like developed differently if you have had like constant childhood trauma. Like for example, if you had a father who was physically abusive with you between the ages like 0 and 18, obviously like your brain is going to develop different than someone who didn't have that. And how is it going to develop? Well, you're hyper vigilant, you're looking out for threats
Yeah.
because you're trying to survive, so like because if you didn't watch yourself, you could get hit. So trauma has wired your brain, and not only through talking, but through like doing things with the body and the breath, you can rewire or unwire it. So that's where this like somatic work comes from. So at the end of 1990s, Dr. Stephen Porges, for example, he had the book Awakening the Tiger. Like he was talking about how like
Was that
animals in nature.
Peter Levine? Peter Levine.
Peter Levine, yeah,
Yeah, Peter Levine was
Stephen
Awaken the
Porges is the other
Tiger.
one. Yeah,
Yeah,
Peter Levine.
Stephen Porges is a polyvagal.
Yeah, polyvagal
Yeah,
theory.
yeah.
So they had books like at the end of 90s,
Mhm.
early 2000s that came out around the same time and really changed the field. So he talks about, Dr. Peter Levine, he talks about how like animals in the nature, when they have a traumatic incident, they are able to like shake it off, quote unquote, because like they immediately get up and start running, like they do something to discharge that fight or flight energy.
Mhm.
But for example, like when you're a 3-year-old child and when you're getting, physically assaulted, there's nothing you can do. Like you can't discharge this, uh, righteous, natural human response of like wanting to fight back. Like, what are you going to do? So like all that rage, all that anger, all that like healthy, righteous anger gets trapped in your nervous system. It never came out. And then it's not enough when you grow up. It's not enough to just talk about it. You have to experience that state where you are able to fight back. So, we do exercises like, for example, imagery. Like if you had something traumatic happen to you, we go back into that incident in the here and now I form, like, okay, like my father is, hitting me right now. I'm screaming, la, la, la. And then when it comes, okay, like, what do you want to do? Like stop talking and do, or maybe you want to yell, or maybe you want to like run around the room. So we allow that response to complete. We allow that like survival response, and it's usually something like defending yourself or fighting back or yelling back or running away. So we let it complete, and that resolves the trauma, not just like this happened to me, it sucked, okay, well, sorry about that. That's not
Yeah.
100% how it's done. So with trauma, you do have to do this like somatic stuff for sure.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I just love hearing you approach things from such a holistic way, and like taking in the new developments in the field and what works and understanding, the complexity of some people and what they've
Yeah,
navigated in their life. Because I definitely think there are just what's the word I'm trying to think of, like limitations to just sitting here
yeah,
and talking about the same shit over and over again with your
yeah,
therapist. There
yeah,
has to
yeah,
you have to
exactly.
bring the body and the feelings and the nervous system into it. I've realized that from my own personal experience. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's about the experience, huh? Like not just talking, but experiencing, So for example, um, okay, you should set more boundaries. Great advice. Like it's not wrong, but make the client set boundaries with you. Like do a role play, like tell them, like ask them to do something they don't want to do, and role play them experiencing this like guilt and discomfort. It's like, like he's asking me to come to this event, but I don't want to go. How do I say, like real time in the session, making them experience this like discomfort and overcoming it. Of course, you want them to say no to you in that example. And finally they say, oh, I don't really want to come. I push a little bit. Why not? It's going to be fun. Because I don't feel well. And then, somehow they survive. And I'm like, great, you just experienced say
Yeah,
no to someone who was pushy. Like your nervous system experienced, your nervous system had this experience of like fighting back and completing the fight, and like not being punished, not being hurt.
yeah.
Somebody tried to violate the boundary, you fought back, it was good. You saved yourself, the threat finished, good for you. Now your nervous system learned, now you have this like intrinsic learning, rather than, oh, you should set more boundaries.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay. Thank
know.
you. I'll see you next
Yeah,
week.
yeah, 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 exactly. Show me how. So,
Yeah, the power of
yeah,
imagination,
yeah,
like they're
yeah.
sitting there and it's not real,
Hmm.
but you're role playing and it is real.
Yeah,
There is
yeah,
a lived experience. They're vocalizing, they're
yeah,
physicalizing it. And
yeah,
that is where the learning comes. And then they can go onto the real world and, maybe they're that next week they're 5% better at setting boundaries. And then the following week they're 10% better at setting boundaries. And then they get to the place where someone's like, "Hey, come on, let's, you should have a drink tonight. Let's go party." No, I'm going to stay home tonight. And even without the need to like rationalize it and justify it and
yeah,
apologize,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, no, a simple no, I'm unavailable is fine. Now I
yeah,
really want to come. I hope you're not mad at me. And like, but that might be the initial stage, the initial
mhm.
process, but ultimately to get to a place where you can simply say no, and that's it
Yeah.
on some
Yeah,
level.
Well, I mean, the nervous system doesn't really know the difference between like imagination
Yeah.
and reality in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even to like wire the nervous system for more success oriented goals that one might have. Like, this is the power of mental rehearsal. Like, if you're really nervous and you're not great at public speaking, and you have to give a presentation at work, whatever it might be, like role playing, doing the thing, weaponizing the imagination to support you in that
Exactly.
process and to
Yeah.
live it out multiple times before the event, you know?
I just
Yeah.
listened to an interview with this high school wrestler because I wrestled and I'm kind of into wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
And he has the most wins without a loss in high school, 170-0. And he just got his third his third state championship. He couldn't get a fourth one because his freshman year, his team was like barred from the tournament. Anyways, he was interviewing how his dad is his coach, and they're constantly visualizing and rehearsing the match and who they're going against and how is it going to go, like over and over and over again. Like, it's just a part of his life and a part of his process. So it's always so cool to see people that have achieved high levels of success, like implementing these tools that a lot of times we talk about or people pay lip service to.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Amen. That's so true. And athletes are a great example because they do that. Like, I saw this video on Instagram. Somebody put it together, like all these track and field athletes. Like, sometimes you can hear them a little bit, sometimes you can just like read the lips, but they're like, okay, like you're gonna run like we practiced, and you're gonna, like, they're talking to, like, as if they're coaching themselves or something like that, and they do this all the time. But of course, we don't realize when you're watching the competition, but they're constantly telling like how it's going to go to themselves. And then of course it goes that way, because they've practiced so many times. So
yeah, it's really cool.
it's really interesting. Yeah.
I mean, there's a correlation between like the nervous system and the subconscious in that sense as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the nervous
Yeah.
system operates automatically below the level of the conscious mind.
Exactly.
And it's like, if you find ways to make your nervous system feel comfortable enough to perform in a certain way, then like when the moment happens, there's less conscious thought in, oh, now I'm doing the thing, now I'm acting this way. It's like, no, like action happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Automatic. And again, like watch what people do, because that's how you understand what's in their unconscious and what their nervous system state is. And again, like going back to the beginning, 100+ years ago, when Freud was coming up with psychotherapy and Jung, like that's what they realized. They're like, oh wow, like there's this whole other thing behind the conscious mind that's intertwined with the nervous system, because Freud was a neurologist. He was a medical doctor. So that's what they realized. And these like Freudian slips, for example, like when you like, they're so quick, but you can see what the person really wants. And then of course they correct themselves, and it's like, okay, we're back to the like socially acceptable thing of lying to each other. It's like, okay, but like you can really see like people's gestures, people's like facial expressions, Freudian slips, how long they take to respond to you. Like it's all telling you something. It's all telling you the truth, basically.
Yeah, totally, man. Hey, what books and what maybe thinkers have impacted you the most on your journey?
Great question. Yeah. So the first one would be Irvin Yalom. Have you guys heard about him? Irvin Yalom. He's an American. He's a Jewish American psychologist. He came up with existential psychotherapy. Irvin Yalom. His books are very famous in, like, especially in academia. If you go to grad school for psychology, you're definitely gonna read one of his books. And he talks about how existential concerns affect our psychology. So, and I find it really fascinating. Like I read all of his books, super interesting stuff. There's a book, Staring at the Sun. He has a book called Staring at the Sun. It's really cool. It's about how we can use the idea of like dying to try to live better, basically. And so that's the first one. Second one, more existential people, more existential guys like Viktor Frankl, Rollo May. I love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
That Carl Jung, of course, Sigmund Freud. Like both of them, they wrote so well. Like you look at these books from like 100+ years ago, but every sentence is like a paragraph,
Yeah.
and it's so beautiful. And like it's a textbook. Like back then, he thought he was writing a textbook, but it's like every paragraph you have to sit down and like really think about it, and like it's so dense. These guys were like really geniuses, and the way they used the language too. So yeah, like those guys. And then more recently, the holistic psychologist Dr. Nicola Pera, she has 4 books now, I think 3 books.
Huh.
She's also a friend of mine. We met through Instagram, and we became like internet friends. And then a couple of years ago, she was here in Amsterdam
Cool.
for an event, and we finally got to meet. Like I think her book, her first book, How to Do the Work. I think that's like a great self-reparenting guide. She talks about the stuff that I talk about. It's like we overlap so much with her. Um, what else? What else? Um, yeah, Marsha Linehan. She created dialectical behavioral therapy. It's like this
Uh-huh.
really effective therapy for borderline personality disorder, for emotion regulation, for like self-harm kind of problems. Yeah, she has a couple of books where she talks about like her own experiences, because I think she also herself used to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. She was hospitalized. She's from somewhere in the south, in the States. But yeah, like really interesting books, and you can see how she overcame it and then became a professor and blah blah blah. So that's that's the
Cool,
stuff
man.
that I like.
That's a lot.
There's
Yeah.
so many. Yeah, like there's so many, because like I read books on my computer. I'm I'm such a nerd, like for me, like reading is like work. You're never gonna find me like with a book on the couch. I read them on my laptop because I'm constantly like taking notes or like copy pasting certain passages, and then to come back to them and see like what's going on.
I love it, man. I
Yeah.
love, just being a student is like
Yeah. Yeah. Me
so
too. Yeah.
enriching, so
Yeah.
enriching.
Yeah.
Having a romance with knowledge almost.
Amen. Yeah.
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 Hey, I'm gonna wrap this up shortly.
Yeah.
For some reason, I want to ask you, like, do you have like a favorite movie, like something that maybe like speaks to, like the psychological work or within the psychological fields, or doesn't not necessarily, but anything that comes to mind?
Oh man, good question. But me and movies. I used to love movies. Like I used to watch movies all the time. But over the past like 4 or 5 years, I completely stopped watching everything. Like I don't have Netflix. I don't have anything. I don't watch
Oh man.
anything. No movies, no TV shows, because I find them incredibly boring or low quality or just like some kind of propaganda.
Yeah. A
So
lot of propaganda for sure.
yeah, so I stopped, but like not as a movie. Like I can't think of it now. Like I have many favorite movies, but um, the character Batman, the
Mm.
Batman,
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that's perfect. And the latest movie with Robert Pattinson,
Hmm.
I think like psychologically it was really good, because you can really see how the childhood trauma um, affects him to become like a vigilante. But like it's really layered. And then all the other characters in the movie, like the Catwoman, she also has trauma, and she's also dealing with it by like seeking justice, seeking revenge, like empowering herself and fighting against like these bad people, la, la, la. So I can't give you a movie, but as
Yeah,
a
that
as a
works.
character, I
That
think like
works.
Yeah.
Batman super interesting. It's also like really good message for everyone. Like you can fucking build yourself up. Like you
Yeah.
because he doesn't have superpowers. But
Yeah.
he holds his own against superheroes.
Yeah.
So like use every advantage you can use. Use every gadget, every tool you can find, build yourself up, learn martial arts, like build your body, build your mind, like learn different skills, become smarter. And through that, do something,
Yeah.
do something to make the world a better place.
Amazing,
But yeah,
man.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
so much. I was gonna ask you to give a final message for the audience, but I think you said it perfectly through the analogy of Batman just
Yeah.
now. Barlas, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for being who you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah,
I
man.
love that
Yeah.
there's people like you working directly, in the psychotherapy fields. In closing, like if our audience or any people that are listening really resonate with you and your message, where would you like to direct them?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram at Accept and Act. That's like my main thing, my main platform. I share self-reparenting content every single day. I also have a Patreon membership page. They can also sign up there to get extra content, but also it's like a ongoing self-reparenting course. So at this point, it's 4+ years old. So I have like 700 original posts and voice recordings and tips and tricks on 50 different topics. So what we do is every month with my subscribers, we vote on a topic like nervous system regulation, self-reparenting, narcissism, spirituality, like whatever. And for a whole month or even 2 months, I do a deep dive on it. Like I teach them everything I know about it, videos, voice recordings, different tools, so they can sign up there.
Amazing.
And yeah, those two are the main things. And hopefully I will also finish my book. So
Amazing.
I've been writing a book for a very long time, but yeah, I have a little daughter. She's 4, so you guys, I mean, you know how it is. I'm either like working or taking care of her.
Yeah.
So, writing a book, it takes forever, but it will finish the more she grows up and the more time I have for the book. So yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Everyone else, thank you for listening. We'll have all those links in the show notes. Make sure you send me that
Yeah.
Patreon link, Barlas, and we'll put that in
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah. Thank you
All
for
right,
having
guys.
me.
Take
Yeah.
care. Thank you so much for diving in and listening. I trust that you got value from this conversation. One thing that we really try to achieve is, people feeling more inspired, more encouraged, more threads intellectually, even for them to pull upon after a conversation of Here for the Truth. Like that's the flavor that ultimately we want to leave you with after consuming and listening to our podcast. So I hope we've achieved that. I hope, go check out Barlas on Instagram, like his little one-liners, his little posts, the way he communicates. It is, for me, I believe he's on point when it comes to his communication of psychology.
Yeah, I want to say something too, because it
Yeah.
just made me think like, that episode we were talking about reality, we were talking about truth. So in our podcast is called Here for the Truth. I mean, on some level, you can call it Here for Reality.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's like in your life where you not honoring the truth of who you are and what's happening in your life in reality. And so I think we cover a lot in this episode, and I love everything that Barlas shared.
Yeah, man, for sure. One last reminder, our amazing membership community, Friends of the Truth. You can join in at any time. It's such incredible value at only $27 a month. You're getting 6 to 7 calls every single month. You don't have to show up to everyone, plus the most awesome private Telegram community. No commitment to stay beyond a month if you're not feeling it, but come check it out. Come say hello. We'd love to meet you. Hereforthetruth.com/FOTT.